Okay, well, today's a big event.
How about, hello, my children and grandchildren.
You do it. You start out. Go ahead.
Hello, our dear children and grandchildren.
This is
That was my.
that was yours. Okay.
Those are my lines. Your turn.
Okay. Today is the 5th, 6th,
5th of December.
5th of December, 2012. We wanted to leave a memory of how your grandpa and your grandma really were, are, and provide you with some ideas of, so that when we are gone, you'll have some memory beyond just a picture. And each of you will receive a DVD of this experience that we're having together. We've got a great young fellow named Ben who's doing the recording for us, and we're really appreciative of his stepping in and to do this. We're going to start with the introduction to our front of our house as Mary Jo comes out of the house in her electric chair. What do you call those? I keep forgetting.
Oh, it's a jazzy.
Jazzy. It's a jazzy. And that goes well with the jazz, Utah Jazz. So that as she comes out, we cross over the street like we do quite often to the park, 2450 Park, which is just immediately across the street from our house. And this was when we first moved here into this house 21 years ago. There was no park. It was just southwestern scenery, just dust. There you go, a lot of sand. And then about 12 years ago, the city came in and built our front yard for us. Beautiful. We don't have to pay taxes. Well, maybe we do indirectly. But at any rate, we go over there quite often during the week, and we've developed a group of friends who come to that park over the last 5-6 years, a group of about 8 or 10 people who would frequent the park. About the same time, we developed kind of an informal club get-together. I've had some breakfasts over in the gazebo. A little park community. Unfortunately, with age, they're all retired people too, virtually all of them, and illness has come along, death to a few of them recently, and more aches and pains and more difficult to walk. So our group is kind of dwindling, but it's been a special place for us, and that's one reason we wanted to see where we would go, especially early on summer mornings when it was still cool in St. George, which doesn't last long, but it's been very nice. And then here in our house, 152 North, 2650 East, we have Ben take some pictures of what's really here. Video of our pictures of part of our family here, part of them over there, part of them up above our dining room table, because you are the special ones for us. You children, you grandchildren. That's what families are really about. And then a video of our prayer table, which we obtained in Peru. I designed it, provided the design, and a carpenter who was a member of our church put it on leather on the table and then made stools for it. Yes, honey? Brother Ulkewonka was his name. And that served as for many a prayer for our children and ourselves. We use that in the morning. So it's more than just something souvenir. It's been very meaningful to us. And then on the table over here, wanted you to have an idea of that. There are 6 volumes over there, the white volumes, which are the journals of Mary Jo, which we have put together during the last month. you and I have put together. Tell them about the journals. What's in them, honey?
Well, they're almost like
Speak up loud.
vignettes, because there's many large gaps in between each writing, years sometimes, and I regret that, but this will give you a flavor anyway of some of the dynamics of our family and what was going on at different periods. I think there's a little bit from Quillabamba, some from Peru. See, when we were, letters that I sent home when we were in Venezuela and Guatemala, and a large, I guess the longest period of time was when we were in Provo, when you kids were still all home, and Jim was just a little guy. And let's see.
And we've added some pictures and photos.
Yeah, with some photos of my my early years, which
childhood years.
Childhood years. I should have a lot more on that, but anyway.
So those are all set to give to you this Christmas. We just finished that. Wanted you to have that, and then just 2 nights ago, the idea came to video what we're doing here today. It came from my running across a poem which I read to your mother, your mother, our kids, grandmother, my wife, before we were married. We lived in Provo, attending BYU, and I had met Mary Jo. She impacted me pretty early on, and we went up the canyon, Provo Canyon, not very far to where the diversion dam is. Just beyond that, there's a bridge you cross over, go on to the other side, and I think they have a park and also a jogging trail on that side now. But it used to be a shooting range where you could go up and train in your rifles and pistols. And up there in that area, I took a book, a red book I had of literature from a literature class given to me by J. Golden Taylor, the class was taught by J. Golden Taylor, a professor of English, and I really enjoyed this American literature class.
Not confusing that with J. Golden Kimball?
No, it's J. Golden Taylor.
He must have been named after him.
Yeah, probably was named after him. But the poem that I read to your mother was Renaissance, or Renaissance, which means rebirth. And it was powerfully impactful for me, and I'm sure I didn't get through it at the time without a few tears being shed. And that might happen today, because I want to read this poem to you because of the significance of all the poetry I've ever read. The most significant poem in terms of life and repentance and being able to live in the presence with an appreciation for what's happening and what's going on. So with that background, I might just add that my own personal background before I met Mary Jo, before I went to BYU, was one of having been converted to the church just a year and a half before I got to BYU, and lived in Denver for that year and a half after I was converted. But as I read this poem, it was so congruent with my experiences before I became a member of the church. It starts out with, you have a very limited view of life, of the significance of life, even of the beauty of life. And then as you go through this conversion process and appreciate what the gospel teaches us about living and the significance of life, it changes depression and suicidal ideation and all of those things into a joy to be alive. And that is what this poet, who is probably the most famous poet in American literature, her name is Edna St. Vincent Millay. She lived in the early 1900s and wrote at that time. But even today, there are groups of people across the country who meet in respect to what she wrote and to re-experience again the poetry. You take a look on, I haven't done this, but go to Google and to check out the web and see what it has to say about Edna St. Vincent Millay, Renaissance. So I'm going to read this poem, and I'm going to stop occasionally as I do, as I get into it, to kind of give a little background. It's not an easy poem. It's very profound, but once understood, it just brings to life again the significance of living. This poem I have in the past read to different student groups, firesides. I've read it, even parts of it, in sacrament meeting, especially at Easter time, because it has such a special significance in being reborn. So it's not something that just for today. It's something that through my life has had real significance. And it starts out where a lot of people start out, just going through life, not particularly appreciating, not particularly thankful for what's there, what's around them, what they experience, the sunlight coming in, whatever, just kind of flat. Their lives are kind of flat. As a therapist, I worked with many who experienced this at the outset of the psychotherapy work that I did with them. And this is to be contrasted. Keep this in mind as I begin this poem, how many people see no further than what's around them and experience very little, have very little appreciation. And I use the word depression. Many people go through life depressed or semi-depressed, whereas what opens up once you understand the meaning of life and receive this new vision is so powerful that it makes the other, by contrast, very insignificant. So I'll start and I sometimes refer to the poet Edna as him or her. I kind of overlooked that. And for my ears, my eyesight is not as good as it used to be. My voice isn't as good as it used to be. I'm not as good as I used to be. I don't jog as much as I used to jog. Anyway, that's the reality of just getting up to 85 years. Okay. All I could see from where I stood, 3 long mountains and a wood. I turned and looked the other way. I saw 3 islands in a bay. So with my eyes I traced the line of the horizon, thin and fine, straight around till I was come back to where I started from. And all I saw from where I stood were 3 long mountains and a wood. Over these things I could not see. These were the things that bounded me. And I could touch them with my hand. Almost, I thought, from where I stand. And all at once things seemed so small, my breath came short and scarce at all. But sure, the sky is big, I said, miles and miles above my head. So here upon my back I'll lie and look my fill into the sky. And so I looked, and after all, sky is not so very tall. The sky, I said, must somewhere stop, and sure enough, I see the top. The sky, I thought, is not so grand. I most could touch it. So here we're getting into kind of experimental. Is this all that she is aware of? Is there anything more out there? And so she begins to move into becoming more, anything else out there? Anything really significant? The sky, I thought, is not so grand. I most could touch it with my hand. And reaching up my hand to try, I screamed to feel it touch the sky. I screamed, and lo, infinity came down and settled over me, and pressing of the undefined the definition on my mind. And it held up before my eyes a glass through which my shrinking sight did pass, until it seemed I must behold immensity made manifold. So here, beginning to see what is really whispered to my ear, a word whose sound deafened the air for worlds around, and brought unmuffled to my ears the gossiping of friendly spheres, the creaking of the tinted sky, the ticking of eternity. Now at this point in her poem, she begins to take upon her, in a parallel fashion, what Christ took upon himself in his coming to know all and experience and feel all the burdens and the pain that have been brought to us. I saw and heard and knew at last the how and why of all things past and present and forevermore. The universe, cleft to the core, lay open to my probing sense, that sickening I would fain pluck thence, but could not, nay, but needs must suck at the great wound, and could not pluck my lips away till I had drawn all venom out. Ah, fearful pawn, for my omniscience paid I toll in infinite remorse of soul. All sin was of my sinning, all atoning mine, mine the gall of all regret. Mine was the weight of every brooded wrong, the hate that stood behind each envious thrust. Mine every greed, mine every lust. And all the while, for every grief, each suffering, I craved relief with individual desire, craved all in vain, and felt fierce fire about 1,000 people crawl, and I perished with each that mourned for all. A man was starving in Capri. He moved his eyes and looked at me. I felt his gaze, I heard his moan, and knew his hunger as my own. I saw at sea a great fog bank between two ships that struck and sank. 1,000 screams the heavens smote, and every scream tore through my throat. No hurt I did not feel, no death that was not mine. Mine each last breath that crying met an answering cry from the compassion that was I. All suffering mine, and mine its rod, mine pity like the pity of God. Ah, awful weight, infinity pressed down upon the finite me. My anguished spirit, like a bird, beating against my lips I heard, yet lay the weight so close about, there was no room for it without. And so beneath the weight lay I, and suffered death, but could not die. You might say that at this point, having taken upon her all the sickness, the illness, the pain, the agony, the screams, suffering, all of these things, she dies. She cannot bear the weight. Deep in the earth I rested now. Cool is its hand upon the brow, and soft its breast beneath the head of one who is so gladly dead. And all at once, and over all, the pitying rain began to fall. I lay and heard each pattering hoof upon my lowly thatched roof, and seemed to love the sound far more than ever I had done before. For rain, it hath a friendly sound to one who's 6 feet underground, and scarce the friendly voice or face. A grave is such a quiet place. The rain, I said, is kind to come and speak to me in my new home. Oh, I would I were alive again. To kiss the fingers of the rain, to drink into my eyes the shine of every slanting silver line, to catch the fresh and fragrant breeze from drenched and dripping apple trees. For soon the shower will be done, and then the broad face of the sun will laugh above the rain-soaked earth, until the world with answering mirth shakes joyously, and each round drop rolls twinkling from its grass blade top. How can I bear it, buried here? While overhead the sky grown clear and blue again after the storm. O multicolored, multiform, beloved beauty over me that I shall never more behold. Sleeping your myriad magics through, close sepulchred, away from you. Oh God, I cried, give me new birth and put me back upon the earth. Upset each cloud's gigantic gourd, and let the heavy rain downpoured in one big torrent set me free, washing my grave away from me. I ceased, and through the breathless hush that answered me, the far-off rush of herald wings came whispering like music down the vibrant string of my ascending prayer, and crash, before the wild wind's whistling lash, the startled storm clouds reared on high and plunged in terror down the sky, and the big rain, in one black wave, fell from the sky and struck my grave. I know not how such things can be. I only know there came to me a fragrance such as never clings to aught save happy living things. A sound as of some joyous elf singing sweet songs to please himself. And through and over everything a sense of glad awakening. The grass, a tiptoe at my ear, whispering to me, I could hear. I felt the rain's cool fingertips brush tenderly across my lips, lay gently on my sealed sight, and all at once the heavy night fell from my eyes, and I could see a drenched and dripping apple tree, a last long line of silver rain, a sky grown clear and blue again. And as I looked, a quickening gust of wind blew up to me and thrust into my face a miracle of orchard breath. And with the smell, I know not how such things can be, I breathed my soul back into me. Ah, up then from the ground sprang I, and hailed the earth with such a cry as is not heard save from a man who has been dead and lives again. About the trees my arms I wound, like one gone mad I hugged the ground. I raised my quivering arms on high and laughed into the sky, till at my throat a strangling sob caught fiercely, and a great heart throb sent instant tears into my eyes. Oh God, I cried, no dark disguise can ever hereafter hide from me thy radiant identity. Thou canst not move across the grass, but my quick eyes will see thee pass, nor speak however silently, but my hushed voice will answer thee. I know the path now that tells the way through the cool eve of every day. God, I can push the grass apart and lay my finger on thy heart. And then Edna concludes with a warning that when you experience this rebirth, it isn't sufficient that you just have the experience and have that tremendous joy that comes with it, as I have experienced in the Gulf of Alaska, when I discovered the meaning of life itself, when I discovered that I lived before, that there's a purpose to life, and that's to become more like God by living as He would have us live, and that there is life after this, and that we can go to Him in a more perfected state than that which we had living here upon this earth. And that joy I felt as I read simple tract, The Plan of Salvation, which introduced me to the Mormon Church. And here's the warning. The world stands out on either side, no wider than the heart is wide. Above the world is stretched the sky, no higher than the soul is high. The heart can push the sea and land further away on either hand, and the soul can split the sky in two and let the face of God shine through. But east and west will pinch the heart that cannot keep them pushed apart. And he whose soul is flat, the sky will cave in on him by and by. Maybe in conclusion, Mary Jo and I can just share with you the deep love which we have for each of you, and will have for those of you who are yet unborn, the great-grandchildren who we may never see, and beyond that, the great-great-grandchildren, to let you know that we love you.
We'll always be close by.
We'll always be close by. And we're grateful that we, on this earth, could have the experience of coming here and living. 85 years now for me, 77 for you.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy. Okay, we love you. Bye-bye for now.